Welcome to Robbo's Pencil Case. My name's Louise Roberts, and inside the pencil case today, we're going to be looking at creative response. We'll be looking at it from an introductory point of view. What are the criteria? What do I need to do? And we'll be pairing that up with Kate Kennedy's Like a House on Fire, a fabulous collection of short stories which Vika and Kate Kennedy have gloriously placed on the Vika text list for Year 12. So, Like a House on Fire are a whole bunch of short stories which Kate Kennedy delves into different characters. She compiles a huge amount of themes that interrelate, and of course, there is also symbolism of which no English teacher is worth their salt unless they come up with some kind of tenuous link as to what they think it means. So let's delve into the creative response and look at the criteria, shall we? So there are 4 criteria for the creative response. The first 3 criteria relate to the creative response in itself, so the creative response that you pen. And then the last criterion is all about your explanation of the decisions that you made, how it connects with Kate Kennedy's work, how you incorporated the themes, the characters, if necessary, the style of writing, and whatnot. But let's have a look at the first 3 criteria because that's all to do with your creative response. So, the first criterion for very high expected quality is that of a sophisticated and complex understanding of the original text and your insightful selection of key moments, characters, themes that are worthy of exploration. So, that means within the short space of time that you have in order to create your response, you don't need to cover every single idea, every single key moment, and certainly not every single thematic aspect, because Kate Kennedy has woven so many different thematics and thematic elements throughout the short stories. So anything from grief and loss to connections, and of course, opposing that of isolation, self imposed or environmental, or even the isolation of feeling like one's the only person going through the the existence or the hiccups of life. And from that, the reflective nature of what becomes a mundane epiphany for many of these characters. So some of the other themes incorporate that of grief and loss, of identity, of dreams, and of course that idea of relationships and interconnection, of love and friendship, and there are just so many to talk about. Of persistence, of guilt, and of course of how one helps to calm and assuage others. So, through this idea of character and themes that are worth expressing, you can pick one or 2 perhaps, but try and keep it to a minimum when you're doing your creative response, because you're limited by time and you're limited by how much you can write as well within your creative response. The second criterion looks at a sustained development of voice and style by skillfully transforming and adopting language and literary devices to generate particular responses with insightful consideration of the original text. Now, within each one of Kate Kennedy's stories, she's looked at anything from incorporating different fonts or voices to create character, or perhaps the different symbolism or imagery that she weaves throughout her short stories. On top, in combination of that, there's also the idea of sentence structure, of paragraph structure, and of course of the entirety of the short story construction. So many of the short stories begin partway and don't have a satisfying conclusion either. So they end without that satisfying conclusion, or even a satisfying cliffhanger type conclusion either. And of course, this fits in with this understanding that life continues to meander on, that there is never a real finality to life until, like in ashes, you end up being spread across the lake. But it still continues. It continues through the family and relationships that you have as well. There are also understandings of the semantic fields that Kate Kennedy also creates. So if you're looking at cake, there's a little vignette where the main character is considering what her child is perhaps going through. And that is layered with militaristic type of words, from camouflage to attacking and the like. So it's quite easy to assimilate that kind of semantic field within your writing. And of course, the third criterion is that of your English expression. So, how it can be highly expressive, fluent, and coherent. So, that means that your assessor never takes their eyes off the page, but consistently understands where you're going. However, that doesn't mean that you aren't able to take a left turn and surprise them with a twist. Now, the fourth criterion is all about the justification of decisions relating to the creative piece that you've manifest, and so that so this allows you to show your analysis skills and how you connect your writing back to Kate Kennedy's work. So now that you've got a better understanding, or an introductory understanding, to not only the criteria but also the expected qualities, shoot for the moon. You've got to consistently push yourself up towards that very high grade, and your teacher is there in order to help guide you. And as always, if you want to write a comment, or you've got a particular question, please don't hesitate to comment below. So, of course, when you're writing your creative piece, there are two questions that guide you. This is the first of those. What insights can I present that show my understanding of the text? Now, this obviously relates to those first two criteria of what are the key moments, the characters, and of course, the thematic elements that you can embed within your piece. Also, what other insights can you present at that of the textual features? And we'll talk more about that in the second question. So there are a variety of ways that your school might set up your creative piece. It might be that they give you a particular form that you need to write your creative piece in. They might give you characters. They might give you gaps in the story, or they might ask you to give a preface. So what happens before the short story, or might be a gap in the story, or perhaps what happens after. And so you can really show your insight into the characters, their moral, their philosophical, their psychological perspectives on life, or even their psychological reflections as well. The other insights might incorporate the relationship aspects of how the characters interrelate. So, for instance, if you are looking at flexion and you're showing the insight of perhaps a once dominating and domineering character like Frank Slovak, and how there's a complementary character that was seen as more subordinate. And then, of course, as the short story progresses, this relationship alters until eventually the wife, Slovak's wife, has more of control over her life and has more control over her husband in the sense of moral obligations. So she's asking her partner, and she demands that he says thank you to those community members that not only helped him, helped her, and of course helped the farm as well. And so in the beautiful ending of that particular short story, the wife places her husband's hand on his heart. And of course, we know that's symbolic of compassion, that's symbolic of showing an empathetic understanding, and perhaps that's what will then come back to him. So imagine writing the next day. Or perhaps if you're going for a gap in the story, then it might be some of the phone calls and how people respond to Slovak saying thank you. So each one of these insights needs to show your analytical understanding of the short stories as well. And then the second question for an introductory question you want to ask yourself is, what insights can you present that show your understanding of Kate Kennedy's style of writing? So if you're looking at perhaps waiting, then you're looking at her sentence structure, which is quite formulaic throughout the story. So most of the paragraphs begin with a short sentence, except for the very first paragraph, which is quite a lengthy sentence. There's also italics in there as well. There's this understanding, there's a difference between the thought process, the projection of what she feels other people are going to say, and of course, what then people state to her. There's also this thoughtfulness with regards to gender and how the genders perceive all of these, types of comfort. Another difference in sentence structure, if you're looking at Sleepers, and Sleepers also has a different font structure as well. But look at when the signs are definite. So the stop sign, for instance, and metaphorically what that means and how then you can embed it within your writing. So you can take that understanding of the stop sign or signs that are surrounding your environment or your characters within your creative response, and how that then processes through their thoughts, or how they're not being reflective and not seeing those signs. And that's another way that you can embed aspects of her style of writing. But please make sure that it's not just track upgrade, delays expected. Oh, my character is going to have delays throughout their piece. But it needs to be purposeful. So what do those delays mean? And if something's being upgraded, is that person going and seeking education? Are they upgrading in their lifestyle? There's all sorts of different ways that you can do that. So this is just an introductory aspect to the creative response, utilising Kate Kennedy's short stories like A House on Fire, and how you might like to incorporate some of those ideas. So, as always, don't forget to subscribe and hit the bell to know when something new is on the channel. Please feel free to comment and ask any questions below, and I'll get back to you as soon as Possible. So I hope you found Robbo's pencil case enjoyable, and we'll see you next time.